The really interesting part about this, and again, we can come back to the specifics, is that the dominoes falling is a good metaphor. It's, if you got 100 dominoes, you knock the first one, they're all going to fall. That's just physics. So how do you stop that? How do you stop that crisis? Well, you truncate, you drop a steel wall between two dominoes, and this one hits the wall, and this one's still standing. But that's the bailout. But the problem is each crisis tends to get bigger than the one before, which means each bailout gets bigger than the one before. My question that I'm wrestling with: are we now at the point where the needed bailout is bigger than the capacity of the central banks? The Silicon Valley Bank was taken over by the regulators on March 10th, but you can see it coming. It was in distress. There was $40 billion, 40 billion pulled out of that bank in one day on Thursday, March 9th, the day before it was taken over. 40 billion just hit the road, just left. It was a complete collapse. And then you get all the corruption, insiders selling stock before the crash. Mary Daly, the chief regulator, president of the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, she's running around doing LMNOP plus and pride flag and all this stuff. Fine, that's it's a free country, you can do that if you like, but she wasn't running the bank, and she knows nothing about risk management. She's a labor economist, protege of Janet Yellen, came up the ranks, but knows nothing about risk management or actually running a bank. So it just got worse, and then here comes Credit Suisse, right? There's more coming. Get ready for it. I'm just saying that there are more dominoes waiting to fall. The entities are always different. The currencies are always different, but the dynamics are very much the same. And the one thing I can say to our viewers is that this is not over. There's been a little bit of a sigh of relief. Stock market rallied a little bit toward the end of beginning of April. And okay, that's a normal reaction. But any thought that the problem's been solved, the bailout's complete, you're not going to hear more, is just not true. You have to actually consider the hidden agenda. It's basically an order that accelerates the U.S. movement towards a central bank digital currency, so-called CBDC. These are happening all over the world. Beijing already has one. They're past the prototype stage. They kind of rolled that out during the Winter Olympics last February. Believe it or not, the Bahamas has a digital currency. There are a few other countries that have already gone in that direction. Europe is the European Central Bank is very far along. The U.S. and the Federal Reserve, because they print the currency, they understood the importance of it. They were watching it, but they were kind of taking their time, like, hey, we're the biggest payment currency, biggest reserve currency in the world, which the dollar is, and we don't want to race into something if it's not thought out. And they were doing a kind of a joint venture R&D program with MIT. Okay, and they got some experts there, so that seems to make sense. But all of a sudden, they accelerated it, and they said, no, we got to move fast on this, and we got to catch up. And that's what 14067 was about. So now we're dangerously close to the point where, as the crisis gets worse, it's no longer, oh, gee, let's wait for the Fed to bail it out, or let's wait for the ECB to bail it out. You get to the point, I think we're there, where you say, no, these guys actually can't stop it. And you lose confidence in the currency itself. The crisis is the dollar itself, and there's no way to bail out a dollar crisis with dollars. Then where do you go? In 1933, people trusted the government. The government wasn't perfect, but they're like, yeah, happy days are here again. FDR is not Hoover. He's trying his best, trying to get us out of the Depression. Unemployment was 20%. There was a sense that Americans had to pull together, make sacrifices, and if that was one of them, they would go along with it. Today, that's not true. Trust is gone. The FBI is like, Biden's Gestapo. The White House is, I waver between corrupt and incompetent. Incompetence and stupidity are my default positions because there's sufficient explanation, but they're actually not. This is all according to plan. The government doesn't want anyone to think that they actually think gold is a monetary asset, so they don't talk about it. But if it got to that point, and the government was thinking about doing something like that, and by the way, when people bring that up, I just say to myself, well, you're looking for reasons not to buy gold. Don't waste my time. But technically, if they had to do it, imagine the world where that's happening. This is where a lot of analysis falls down. People they hold everything constant, and they think of one thing, and they go, it wouldn't work or whatever. But that's not how the world works. The whole world evolves. So you see, what you have to do is imagine the world where the government's actually thinking about doing that, right? This is the world where gold's already at 5,000, on its way to 10,000. The wheels are coming off the international monetary system. Confidence is being lost. Banks are being closed, and gold is going to the moon. And now the government comes along, and the Fifth Amendment still applies. They'd have to pay you $10,000 an ounce, because that's the world where this would be happening. Now, you may or may not want to take it, but you're not talking about $1,700 an ounce. You're talking about $10,000 an ounce, or maybe even more. And the point is, you know, at least you made 10 times your money.
The real danger is not that they don't have a trick or two up their sleeve, but that they can't step off the stage. They can't withdraw from market manipulation, policy rate manipulation, money supply manipulation to try to prop up the economy. They would love to kind of go to the sidelines, have what they regard as a theoretically neutral rate, maybe intervene if there's another crisis or another recession, or cool things down if there's inflation, but otherwise just kind of go on autopilot. That's what they would like to do. They can't do that because they're in so deep, they can't get out.
We did see this in the 1930s, well, between 1929 and 1933, during the first phase of the Great Depression. It was the Hoover administration. Then Franklin Roosevelt came in 1933, and Roosevelt faced exactly the same problem. I mean, he shut every bank in America on like his second or third day in office. By executive order, he closed every bank in America. Can you imagine the president of the United States today? I don't care if it's, you know, Biden or Trump or anybody else, Democrat or Republican, issuing an order saying every bank is closed as of now. We'll get back to you when they're going to reopen. And that's what FDR did to break the banking panic. But he still had the deflation problem, and the Fed couldn't do anything. I talked to Ben Bernanke about this personally, because Bernanke wrote a book on this, and I read the book, and I said, you know, Mr. Chairman, I said, here's what I think you said. Did I get this right? He said, yeah, that's it. You understand it correctly. The Fed's thinking it could be early to mid 2024 before they even think about cutting rates. That's the famous pivot. So here we see Wall Street in real time kind of bidding up tech stocks because the Fed's going to pivot and cut rates. When in fact, Powell's thinking, no, that's not happening until 2024. So that's what the Fed thinks is happening. The market thinks that Powell is over tightening, that inflation will come down faster, and the pivot will happen sooner. And that's why we've seen a little bit of a rally in stocks recently. So you have the Fed narrative, that's plan A. You have the market's version of what the Fed's actually doing, which is plan B. My estimate is that they're already past the terminal rate. They don't know it. They don't think so, but they are. And as I said, inflation is going to come down a lot faster than anyone expects.